really material wasn't that expensive. So now we're faced with shortages of material, shortages of labor, and so we've got to have a fab shop that not only looks good, but it's got to work.
Andy Bauman has been in the MEP industry for over 30 years. He has been a field electrician, general foreman, field manager, and now fabrication manager at Cleveland Electric. He has pioneered effective prefab operations that have led to Cleveland's best-in-class prefab shop. In this episode of MEP Masters, we will learn from MEP Master Andy Bauman on what makes a best-in-class fab shop and how to be effective with change management for new process and technology. I'm David Gabriel, host of MEP Masters, and I'm excited to share this episode with you. Before we hear from Andy, I'd like to share why we have started this podcast. MEP Masters has been created to easily bring you curated information on ideas, process, and technology for the MEP contractor industry. It's a show where MEP experts lift up the curtain and share how they are solving complex problems and finding success in this decade. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Cleveland and Evolve MEP. Cleveland is a leading specialty contractor in the Atlanta market, proudly serving the Southeast for almost 100 years. And Evolve MEP is a software that helps improve profitability and visibility for trade contractors by aligning teams on a single platform. All right, Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me some of the cool things you're doing at Cleveland Electric.
So we are pretty much, we've grown to the point of where we needed to get more organized, more efficient, more involved in really procurement of material and everything else. So we felt like first we had to start having meetings to grow our software program. So we've been meeting for almost 2 years now on different softwares, how to organize it. Then about a year ago, we started working on plans for improving our fab shop, creating a building all by itself as a fab shop, organizing it and reworking the whole thing, and building our BIM department. And so that's some of the cool things we're doing. We're really trying to get more organized and more efficient at material, prefab, and what our BIM department does.
Yeah. And you guys certainly are organized. I remember, for those of you listening, we stopped over Cleveland Electric to do a video called Constructing the Gap. You could look it up on YouTube, Constructing the Gap. And we showed the before and after of their fab shop. And I remember walking in, and it was amazing. You could almost like eat food off the ground. Maybe not, but you could almost. It was so clean. The lights were beautiful, and everything had a place. So that's one of the reasons we'll jump into the topic in a bit, but that was one of the main reasons we wanted you on the show, because a lot of people talk about prefab and having these best-in-class prefab units in operation, but it's like you guys actually made it happen.
Well, with everybody's help, with Evolve's help, absolutely, and our management and everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, you can't do it alone. That's true.
That's
All right. Well, for obviously, Andy, I know you, I know your background, but for those that are listening, walk me through your background. Kind of how you got started in the industry, how long you've been doing it, and what you're doing right now.
So in 1979, I started a job at Square D Electrical Company building switchgear, and I worked there about 3 years. Then I moved over into the electrical apprenticeship program, and I did 4 years in the apprenticeship program, and turned out was a journeyman for a while, became foreman, moved over to Cleveland Electric. I actually worked at a different company. I came to Cleveland Electric, and I was as a foreman and general foreman, and then a field superintendent. And then about 10 years ago, I became the really the field manager. I was kind of the overall general superintendent and got involved with the fab shop pretty heavy. And then so they finally came and told me, well, all right, now you're all fab shop. So so I've been in it over 40 years. And I also am an instructor at our apprenticeship school. And so I've been doing it a long time. I'm pretty dedicated to the industry.
That's awesome. I love that. And you've worn a lot of hats. You've seen a lot of different perspectives. And now, the fab shop, I think for most businesses is like, that's like the innovative engine. Like that's going to be the future. So you're right where the action is.
Oh, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's really been coming for a long time. It's just now it's highlighted, and we're finally getting software, procedures, people that can help us. And there's a lot more out there to get to help
Yep.
you build these things.
Yep. Yeah, that's really good. All right. Well, let's jump into the topic. So, you have a lot of experience around prefab and a lot of experience in the field and across the MEP industry. So I guess before we jump into our topic, which is talking about best in class prefab operations and how to build a best in class fab shop. So before we jump into that, why is it important? And for those that are listening, I think most people have a fab shop, right? So, I mean, if we said it 5-10 years ago, I think the answer was no. But, or maybe they did, but it was more of a warehouse. But now, people are really understanding like, hey, we've got to do more prefab. But why is it important to build some best in class operating procedures for your fab shop?
Well, I think it's become such a big part of our industry. We were always able to get the help we needed. Material was abundant. Really, material wasn't that expensive. So now we're faced with shortages of material, shortages of labor.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have a fab shop that not only looks good, but it's got to work. And it's more, to me, it's more than a fabrication shop. It's an organizational outlet to organize the material and get the stuff packaged to where we can get it to the guys in the field, and they don't have a lot of time figuring out everything. They get what they need to install.
Right. Yeah, it's like, and that's where if the departments are not communicating and you don't have that clear lines of communication and responsibilities, then it's like you're going to lose that efficiency. Is it, when it comes to having the, you've implemented a lot of these types of processes. Is it about being able to take on more projects? Is it allowing you to be more profitable on the project? Is it safety? Like, what are the things that you feel having a better fab shop, what they allow you to do? What are those things?
Well, they allow us several things. So there are definitely some safety involved. The less people we have on a job site's got to be the most unproductive place we work and one of the most dangerous place we work. So number one should always be safety, right? We have a safe environment in here. We have a floor. We have all that, a nice place to work. That should be number one. The next is just organizing, working to be able to do the same volume of work with less people, right? I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to organize that thing to where we're doing as much volume with less people. And now what it forces you to do, it forces you to get everybody in the office working together to get a flow. I mean, it's workflow. BIM department working with the project managers, the project manager working with the field, and then so on and so forth. So it gives you an opportunity to organize your whole thing from start to finish. And to me, that's what it's about. It's really forcing you to get more organized.
Yep. Yeah. And part of it, it's like it's almost like you don't have a choice. Like you need to be able to do more work with less people because there's a labor shortage. And, with, baby boomers more and more retiring, it's probably only going to accelerate.
I don't disagree. I think that's all this has been coming for a while, and it's such a mixed bag. And it's what I'm excited to see is it's finally getting traction
Yep.
with the owners, with actually the field.
Yep.
Everybody, and we know the general contractors and the owners they're on board for it. So it's exciting to see. We've had a fab shop for over 20 years at Cleveland,
Wow.
but it really wasn't. We just made widgets. We just did certain things, right? And we thought, wow, we're doing it. But really, it's the organization, start to finish. In my opinion, is the whole thing put together.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think is the biggest challenge? Because owners, they want it, leadership wants it, those that are in the fab shop want it. What is the biggest challenge to most MEP leaders in implementing some of this best in class operations, better and better collaboration with their field procurement BIM department?
Well, I think it's a lot, and one of them is the buy-in from our management, right? Sure, they want it, but you got to drag them along to say, with wanting it, you've got to spend some money and get some things done. So I once you get the management really into it, now you can start the ball rolling to get your field to accept it. The BIM department's in, and the fab shop's in. Now we just got to get the management, and now we get the field guys to accept it.
Yep.
Right? It's like I said, that's one of the biggest challenges, getting everybody on the same outlook of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's like they understand it's the future, but it's one thing to understand that, it's another thing to write that check, right? And you're going to be investing, right, for a little bit where there might be an inverse ROI for a short period of time. Yeah,
I think sometimes for me is everybody just goes, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to save all kinds of money. Well, maybe not. If you don't do it properly, you're not going to save money. You're just going to spin your wheels. So you've got to spend some money. You've got to clean it up. You got to get it organized. It's got to be where it can be properly used. Then get the software in place. And if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to make that commitment, you're just going to be making little bitty things for somebody to look at. I'm sorry, it's got to work, the whole thing.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's not just like quote unquote doing it, but you got to do it right. You got to do it the right way to where the machine is working and you're building right towards the right things.
That's right.
That's awesome. I guess the last thing, just at Cleveland, what do you think were some of the obstacles to get buy-in? What were some of the obstacles you were facing, right?
Well, I think for us, we had a building, and the problem with it was everybody's building. And so it was a dumping ground, had the tools here, and it really was just disorganized. And you can't effectively build things in an unorganized shop. It probably took me a long time to realize that. And you can't be tripping over things. So-and-so brings a pallet of stuff back and he expects you to keep it. Well, you got to stop all that. You got to have rules. No more dumping ground, no more warehouse space. This is a fabrication shop that has to be kept clean, organized, and you got to have a lot of rules. I think that was a big part of it. Now, like I said, third-party person coming in and designing it, I would highly recommend that helped. So
let's jump in. What do you think? So what was the first step in designing a best-in-class fab shop?
Well, for us, it started off in our group as we kind of thought we needed a software package to help us uh, design our spool sheets and things. So that was number one for us. Let's get the BIM department a little higher up in speed to get what we needed over here. The next thing for us was to hire a third party, which was Evolve, and get them to come in and help us design a layout of our shop. Now, like I said, a lot of us felt like, well, this is what we need. But when you're trying to sell things to your management department or your managers, a lot of times it goes a long way to get that third party person in there to kind of draw it up, talk us through it, come up with ideas, listen to our ideas. To me, that was a big part of getting what we needed.
Yeah.
Your management will buy into that other person that does have experience doing that.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny how it works that way. I mean, even for myself, there are times I'm saying something, I keep saying it, and then just bringing in somebody else that says the exact same thing. It's like, oh, wow, that's a brilliant idea. It's like, I've been saying it the whole time, but
Right.
but in actuality, it's good to have that partnership with external people, right? Because they have different perspectives, right? And it just validates your point. Yeah, that's really good.
100%. Well worth it.
Yeah. So, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but, I think the biggest thing I've heard, as well as, you mentioned this, is, getting buy-in. And it's not just getting buy-in for, hey, let's do prefab or let's have a fab shop, but it's really, how do we get buy-in to do more prefab, right? And also invest in the shop so, we can do more in the shop and do less work in the field. Like, how do you go about getting that buy-in? And, what was your experience with Cleveland?
So my experience is we're on a round table with other contractors, which is another third party, if you really want to think about it, even though, they're a competitor. They're not really competitors, but they're other contractors we meet with. And so what I discovered is they always sent myself and maybe my fab shop foreman or whatever. And what I discovered is I said, hey, it's great that I go. One of the management people need to go. And you start hearing the different stories about what they're doing, what's working. And so for me, that's where it started, getting them involved a little bit, was listening. They don't want to get bogged down in it, but they need to hear that this is industry wide. It is across the nation. And so that was the first thing I felt like we were doing to try to help bring them along. Then my manager of the BIM department and I are pretty good friends. We've known each other for over 20 years. So between him and I, we started just talking about it more and more and more in our management meetings and things like that. And don't get me wrong, it took some time. And then I think what in the end, when everybody finally realizes this is what our customers want, the industry wants, then when they finally kind of got nailed on some jobs that, hey, you guys have a fab shop, what else can you do for us? And once they started hearing that, then they were more open to, okay, what's the next step, right? And then, so really, we're still in a process of the management's in, the BIM's bought in, a lot of our guys in the field are bought in, but we're still working on that. We're still, in fact, when you say you're done, you're making a mistake. I don't think you're ever done. You got to continually work on
that. Like it's almost, you got to change the culture and a little bit, right? And it's, moving a big ship, it takes some time a lot. And I think I like what you said. It's really, getting that leadership involved, understanding like this is the future. And it's not just like, hey, this is eventually going to happen, but it's like, no, this is here today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are contractors doing it. They're saving money. They're getting more jobs. They're able to do more with less. And that's one of the hardest things right now.
It is.
So let's talk about, so let's say, we have the first step identified, we have, buy-in, right? And buy-in's never 100%, but let's say we have enough buy-in to invest in a couple of areas. So what would your recommendation, now that you've been in a fab shop that, was a little disorganized, it was a little bit of a dumping ground, a little bit. And now, I mean, when I saw it, it was amazing. It looked like an entirely different place. What would be your recommendation to, if you could go back, what would be, the 2 or 3 things that you wish you knew, or the top 2 or 3 things that you should tackle first in your fab shop?
So the first thing is definitely having it organized and not cluttered, uncluttering it. So that was the one thing. To be honest with you, the morale of the shop, once that shop gets cleaned up and organized and things are where, there's a place for the forklift, there's a place for everything in that fab shop, that all of a sudden the morale in the shop gets 100% better. The next thing
Wow.
right? I mean, the morale of the shop just went through the roof. And then they got excited, right? So when they get excited, they're building better things for the field. Now the field gets more excited. And then the lighting was huge. That brought the morale up, and I mean, we improved the bathrooms. The morale of the shop is a big part of making it successful. I think that's one of the things that you just don't realize,
Yeah.
including those people. And
I never thought about that. That's really interesting. And it makes sense, because it's your people, right? And that's one of your best investments, right? And you're investing in, one of the ways to do more with less is to make your people more productive. And one of those ways is to increase morale, make them they're not working in a dark warehouse. There's sufficient lighting,
So what happened is I noticed the guys felt like they were finally being recognized, right? Hey, we're finally getting a better place to work. And now, everybody's friends, right? All the field people and the people in here are friends. Well, now instead of them going, yeah, I'm working in the fab shop, now they're going, man, you ought to come by the fab shop and see where I'm working and see what we can do for you. That helps.
They're proud of it. Yeah, it's like they're proud of their work, right? Where before it was a little, it was like, yeah, I work in the fab shop. Now it's like, you got to come over. Let's see what we can do for you. They're more excited.
Exactly.
I like it. What else? What would be one other thing that, you wish you knew, or you would recommend a contractor tackle? So we've got, cleaning it up, right? Organizing it. Everything has a place. What would be the second thing?
Open your mind up to what you're really doing. And it's not just about building parts and pieces. It's about organizing the parts and pieces, procuring the parts and pieces, getting them prepared for the field so it's easy for the field. I got to tell you, we call these things fabrication shops, but it's just as much as organizing people's material and taking that lost time on the job site and bringing it into that shop. I mean, we're now bringing our vendors into our fabrication shop, because we feel like now the line of material needs to come through this fabrication shop.
Right. Even if you're not assembling it, you're organizing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Big thanks to Andy for coming on the podcast. And thank you, listener, for listening to MEP Masters. Any questions or want to join? Email us at david.gabriel@evolvemep.com. And once again, thank you to Cleveland, and we'll see you next time.